Chapter 1. The Party at the Hill House. It was a bright evening at Mrs. Hunston's big house. She was a rich lady who liked to invite many people. The guests were talking, laughing, and showing off their best clothes. The music was soft, and everyone looked happy. But not all hearts in that room were at peace. Among them was a quiet woman named Mrs. Arbuthnot. She was simple, polite, and calm. She had come with her grown son, Gerald, who respected her deeply. They lived a modest life, and Mrs. Arbuthnot never liked to speak about her past. Gerald stood proudly near his mother. He was young, honest, and full of hope. He wanted to build a good future and make his mother proud. People at the party liked him. They said he was well-mannered and smart. Soon a man named Lord Illingworth entered the room. He was famous, rich, and spoke in a confident way. Everyone wanted to talk to him. He smiled at people, but his smile carried a strange pride. When Lord Illingworth saw Gerald, he walked straight to him. "You're a fine young man," he said. "What do you do?" Gerald replied humbly, "I work as a clerk, sir." The man nodded. "You remind me of myself when I was young," he said with charm. "I am looking for a personal assistant. Would you like to work for me?" Gerald's eyes brightened. "It would be an honor, sir," he said quickly. Lord Illingworth laughed lightly. "Good. Then you must come to my office next week." Mrs. Arbuthnot, standing a few feet away, heard everything. Her face turned pale. She looked down, trying to hide her fear. She felt her heart beating fast. She had not heard that name Illingworth for many years. She whispered softly, "No, it cannot be him." But the sound of his voice brought back old memories she had tried to forget. As the evening went on, people gathered around Lord Illingworth. They admired his stories and his success. Gerald felt proud that such a great man liked him. He turned to his mother with excitement and said, "Mother, he offered me a position. He believes I can grow under his guidance." Mrs. Arbuthnot forced a smile. "That is kind of him, dear," she said slowly, but her eyes were full of worry. She could not tell her son the truth in front of others. After a while, Mrs. Arbuthnot quietly moved to the corner of the room. She prayed in her heart for strength. She thought, "Why now? Why must he come back into our lives after so many years?" Gerald came to her and said softly, "Mother, are you feeling unwell?" She smiled weakly. "I am fine, my son, just a little tired." But inside, her soul trembled. She feared that her peaceful life was about to break again. Lord Illingworth walked past them once more and looked directly into Mrs. Arbuthnot's eyes. For a moment, both stood still. He smiled politely, but she could see a shadow of the man she once knew. She turned away and whispered to herself, "Yes, it is him." Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them before anyone could see. The sound of laughter around her felt distant now. She could only think of the secret she had hidden for so long. That night, as they left the party, Gerald was full of dreams. "Mother, my life is going to change," he said happily. But Mrs. Arbuthnot's heart was heavy. She looked at her son lovingly and thought, "You do not know what pain waits behind that man's smile." She held his hand tightly, and prayed that destiny would be kind this time. Chapter 2. The Offer. The next morning, Gerald could not stop thinking about Lord Illingworth's offer. He walked around the small living room with excitement. "Mother, can you believe it?" he said with a bright smile. "He wants me to work for him. This is the best chance of my life." Mrs. Arbuthnot sat near the window, sewing quietly. Her hands moved slowly. She tried to smile, but her heart was uneasy. She said softly, "Gerald, I am happy you are getting new opportunities, but maybe you should think again." Gerald looked surprised. "Think again? Why, Mother? Everyone dreams of such a position. Lord Illingworth is respected by all. He can help me grow. You always taught me to work hard and accept good chances." Mrs. Arbuthnot lowered her eyes. "Yes, I taught you that," she said. "But sometimes, what looks like a blessing hides a test." Gerald didn't understand. "You don't like him, do you?" he asked. "Have you met him before?" Mrs. Arbuthnot's hands froze for a moment. She whispered, "A long time ago. But that does not matter now." Gerald came closer. "Mother, if something worries you, please tell me. You never hide anything from me." She forced a small smile and touched his face. "You are my only happiness, my son. I only want you to stay safe." Gerald laughed lightly. "Mother, you always worry too much. Lord Illingworth is a great man. Everyone admires him." Mrs. Arbuthnot said nothing. She felt her heart sink deeper. She remembered the same charming words many years ago, the same soft tone that once fooled her innocent heart. Later that day, a letter came. It was from Lord Illingworth. It said that he wanted to meet Gerald again that evening to discuss the job. Gerald was full of joy. He dressed neatly and asked his mother to come with him, but she said quietly, "You go alone. I am not feeling well." Gerald did not notice the fear behind her calm face. He simply nodded and left. As soon as the door closed, Mrs. Arbuthnot covered her face with her hands. She prayed for strength. "Oh God," she whispered, "do not let my past hurt my son's future." In the evening, Gerald reached the elegant hotel where Lord Illingworth was staying. The man greeted him warmly. "Ah, my dear boy, I was waiting for you," he said with a wide smile. He asked Gerald to sit and began speaking proudly about his company, his travels, and his success. "I need someone young and loyal," he said. "I think you are perfect for this. You will come with me to the city. I will teach you everything about business." Gerald listened with shining eyes. "Thank you, sir," he said. "I will work hard and make you proud." Lord Illingworth looked at him closely and said, "You remind me of someone I once knew. You have the same eyes." Gerald smiled, not knowing what those words really meant. Lord Illingworth continued, "You must bring your mother one day. I would like to meet her." Gerald nodded happily. "She is the best mother in the world," he said with pride. "You will like her." The man's face changed for a second. A small shadow passed over his smile, but he quickly hid it and said, "I am sure I will." When Gerald came home that night, he was full of excitement. He told his mother everything that Lord Illingworth had said. Mrs. Arbuthnot listened quietly. She tried to keep her voice calm, but her hands were cold. "You told him about me?" she asked slowly. "Yes," Gerald said. "He wants to meet you soon." Mrs. Arbuthnot's heart stopped for a moment. She looked away and said in a trembling voice, "Perhaps it is better if he doesn't." Gerald didn't understand her fear. "Mother, you always taught me to trust good people. Lord Illingworth is one of them." She touched his hand gently and said, "My dear son, not everyone who smiles at you is good. Some smiles hide pain." Gerald became quiet. He didn't want to argue, but he couldn't see what his mother saw. He believed his new life was beginning, but she knew an old wound had just reopened. That night, while Gerald slept peacefully, Mrs. Arbuthnot sat near his bed and looked at him with tears in her eyes. "If only you knew," she whispered, "the truth behind that man's kindness." She closed her eyes and prayed again, not for herself, but for her son's innocent heart. Chapter 3. The Secret Past. That night, Mrs. Arbuthnot could not sleep. She sat beside the small lamp and held an old box in her hands. Inside it were a few letters, tied with a faded ribbon. Her eyes filled with tears as she looked at them. Those letters were written by Lord Illingworth many years ago, when she was young and innocent. She remembered the days when she believed every word he said. He had spoken of love, of marriage, and of a happy life together. But soon, his love turned into silence. One day he left her alone, and she never saw him again. Until now, she thought about how hard her life had been after that. People judged her, and she had no family to protect her. But she stayed strong and raised her son with faith and patience. Gerald never knew anything about the pain behind his mother's smile. She always told him that his father had died long ago. It was easier to let him believe that than to tell him the truth. She wanted him to grow with pride, not shame. As she sat quietly, she heard Gerald walking into the room. "Mother, you are still awake?" he asked gently. She quickly hid the box and smiled. "Yes, I could not sleep," she said. "You came home late, my son." He nodded. "Lord Illingworth kept me for dinner. He told me many stories about his youth. He said he once knew a woman who was strong but proud. He spoke about her as if he regretted something." Mrs. Arbuthnot's heart stopped for a second. "What did he say about her?" she asked in a low voice. "Only that she was brave," Gerald said. "He said she never forgave him." Mrs. Arbuthnot turned her face away so he wouldn't see her tears. "Some women do not forgive easily," she whispered, "and some men never truly change." Gerald smiled, not understanding her pain. "You speak so seriously tonight, Mother. I wish you could trust him a little. He is not as bad as you think." She looked at him with sad eyes. "You see only his words. I have seen his heart." Gerald shook his head and said, "He is giving me a great chance. I must take it." She nodded slowly. "Do what you must, my son," she said quietly. "But promise me one thing. Never forget your values." After Gerald went back to bed, Mrs. Arbuthnot opened her box again. She took out one letter and read it slowly. The words were sweet, but full of lies. You were my world, it said, and I will never leave you. She tore the paper into small pieces and whispered, Those words are dead now. Then she closed the box and put it away forever. She looked at the sleeping form of her son through the open door. He must never know the truth, she thought. He must never feel ashamed of me. But deep inside, she knew that truth never hides forever. One day, the past always finds a way to return. She prayed silently, asking God to give her courage for the days ahead. As she turned off the lamp, a tear fell on her hand. My child, she whispered, you are my only light in this dark story. I will protect you, even if it breaks my heart. Then she lay down on her bed, holding her hands tightly together, waiting for the morning that would surely bring more pain. Chapter 4. The Meeting. The next day passed slowly for Mrs. Arbuthnot. She stayed silent most of the morning, lost in her thoughts. Gerald noticed her quiet face and asked softly, Mother, are you upset about something? She smiled weakly. No, my son, I am only a little tired. But her eyes told another story. Inside her heart, she was preparing for something she could no longer avoid. Lord Illingworth had sent another message. He wanted to visit them in the evening. She wished she could stop time. She did not want to see the man who had once destroyed her peace. As the sun began to set, Mrs. Arbuthnot stood near the mirror. She looked at her face, marked with the years of struggle. She thought, I am no longer the girl he left behind. I am stronger now. When she heard footsteps at the door, her heart trembled, but she stayed still. Gerald opened the door happily. Mother, he is here, he said. Please, be kind to him. She forced a calm smile. I will try, my son. Lord Illingworth entered the room with confidence. He was still charming, still proud, and his voice carried the same smooth tone she remembered from the past. Mrs. Arbuthnot, he said, bowing slightly. It has been many years. She nodded coldly. Yes, many years indeed. Gerald looked between them, unaware of the storm that was rising in his mother's heart. You both know each other? He asked. Lord Illingworth smiled quickly. We met long ago, he said. Mrs. Arbuthnot's voice was calm but sharp. Yes, long ago, when truth was still a stranger to you. He laughed softly, trying to ease the tension. You have not changed, he said. Still proud, still honest. I always admired that. She replied, Pride is all a woman has when the world takes everything else. Gerald did not understand what they were talking about. You speak as if you were enemies, he said with confusion. Mother, please, let us begin again. Lord Illingworth only wishes to help me. Mrs. Arbuthnot looked at her son with love. You think he is your friend, she said, but you do not know the kind of man he is. Lord Illingworth's smile faded. Careful, my dear, he said quietly. Do not say things you will regret. She faced him bravely. I regretted nothing except trusting you once. The room fell silent. Gerald looked shocked. Mother, what are you saying? He asked. She turned away and said softly, "Not now, my son." Lord Illingworth stepped closer. "You have kept your anger for a long time," he said, "but time changes everything. Why don't we forget the past?" She looked straight at him. "Because the past made me who I am. It gave me pain but also strength." Gerald tried to break the silence. "Please, let's talk of something else." Lord Illingworth smiled again, pretending peace. "You are right, my boy," he said warmly. "We will speak of your future. I have big plans for you." Mrs. Arbuthnot's voice shook as she said, "You took my past, and now you want my son's future. How easy it is for you to play with lives." He sighed. "You speak too harshly. I never wished to harm you." She answered, "Then why did you leave me when I needed you most?" Lord Illingworth looked down for a moment, unable to reply. Gerald was silent, feeling a strange pain without knowing why. He looked at his mother and saw tears in her eyes. She quickly wiped them and said, "Gerald, go now. I need to rest." He obeyed quietly and left the room. When they were alone, Mrs. Arbuthnot spoke in a low voice. "You should not have come here," she said. "Your presence burns my peace." He looked at her sadly and said, "Perhaps I came because I never truly forgot you." She shook her head. "Do not pretend to feel. You forgot me the day you walked away." Then she turned her back and said, "Leave before my son learns the truth." Lord Illingworth stood in silence for a moment. "You cannot hide it forever," he said softly. "Secrets have a way of finding their way out." She answered firmly, "Maybe, but until that day comes, I will protect my child with every breath I have." He gave a cold smile, bowed slightly, and left. Mrs. Arbuthnot closed the door behind him and leaned against it, shaking. "You will not destroy my son," she whispered. "Not again." She walked to her son's room, looked at his peaceful face, and prayed that his world would never fall apart the way hers once had. Chapter 5. The Warning. The next morning, Gerald woke up early. He looked happy and full of hope. "Mother," he said cheerfully, "Lord Illingworth wants me to travel with him next week. He says he will introduce me to great people. Isn't that wonderful?" Mrs. Arbuthnot's hands froze as she poured tea. "Travel with him?" she asked slowly. "Yes," Gerald replied. "He says I have a bright future ahead." She smiled weakly. "You are young, my son, and the world looks kind to you. But remember, not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well." Gerald laughed softly. "You still don't trust him." She said gently, "I trust my heart. It warns me for a reason." That afternoon, Gerald's friend Hester Worsley came to visit. She was a simple, honest young woman from America. She liked truth more than wealth, and she admired Gerald for his good heart. They sat together in the garden. Hester said, "Gerald, everyone talks about Lord Illingworth. Some say he is kind. Others say he is dangerous. What do you think?" Gerald smiled. "He has been very kind to me. He wants to help me grow. Hester looked serious. Be careful. A man with too many secrets can never be trusted. Gerald laughed gently. You sound like my mother. You both think too much. Hester replied softly. Sometimes thinking too much saves you from great pain. Gerald looked at her with a smile. You always speak wisely, Hester. She smiled too, but said no more. Inside, she felt uneasy about Lord Illingworth. Later that evening, Lord Illingworth arrived to meet Gerald again. Mrs. Arbuthnot came out of her room when she heard his voice. She stood silently by the door, listening. Lord Illingworth spoke to Gerald about his new life, his plans, and the bright city waiting for him. His words were smooth, his smile confident. You must not let anything hold you back, he said. The world is made for brave men like you. Gerald thanked him, but Mrs. Arbuthnot's heart was restless. She could hear lies hiding inside his soft tone. Well, and Lord Illingworth left. Mrs. Arbuthnot looked at her son. He wants to take you far away, she said quietly. You are ready to go with him? Gerald nodded. It will only be for work, Mother. She shook her head. It begins with work, but sometimes the journey ends in pain. I cannot stop you, but I beg you to be careful. He smiled gently and said, I promise. That night Hester came again. She looked worried. Mrs. Arbuthnot, she said, I must tell you something. Lord Illingworth spoke to me today when I met him outside. He was polite, but his eyes were not kind. I felt uneasy. There is something about him that doesn't feel right. Mrs. Arbuthnot sighed. You are wise to see that. I wish my son could see it too. Hester touched her hand. He will understand one day. When everyone had gone to sleep, Mrs. Arbuthnot sat alone in her room. The truth will come, she whispered to herself. And when it comes, it will break more than one heart. She looked at her son's closed door and prayed silently. God, protect his soul. Let him see the truth before it is too late. Chapter 6. The Truth Revealed. That night, Mrs. Arbuthnot could no longer fight her fear. She knew the time had come to tell her son the truth. For many years, she had carried the weight of silence. Now it was crushing her heart. She sat near Gerald's door, her hands shaking, her lips whispering a prayer. When he returned home, cheerful and full of dreams, she called him softly. Gerald, I need to speak with you. He smiled. Of course, Mother. You look so serious. What is it? She took a deep breath and said, Sit down, my son. There is something you must know. Something I have hidden all your life. Gerald looked confused. Hidden? From me? Why? She lowered her eyes. Because the truth was too heavy for a child's heart. He looked worried now. Mother, you are frightening me, she said quietly. You remember the man who offered you the job, Lord Illingworth? He nodded. Yes. What about him? Her voice trembled. He is your father. Gerald froze. My father? He repeated in disbelief. She nodded slowly. tears filling her eyes. Yes, my son. Many years ago, he promised to marry me, but he broke that promise and left me alone. You were born after he went away. I raised you by myself with God's help. For a moment, the room was silent. Gerald's face turned pale. All these years, he said slowly, you told me he was dead. She whispered, I had to, Gerald. I could not let you grow up with shame. People would have judged you for my mistake. He stood up suddenly, angry and hurt. Mistake? You did nothing wrong. He betrayed you. He is the one who should be ashamed. She looked at him with love. You are right, my son, but pain doesn't always follow justice. Sometimes the guilty walk free, and the innocent carry the scars. Gerald began to pace the room. Now I understand everything, he said. That is why you feared him. That is why your eyes changed when you heard his name. She nodded slowly. Yes, I wanted to protect you from his world. Gerald clenched his fists. He lied to me. He smiled at me as if nothing happened. I believed him. She stood up and placed her hands on his shoulders. Do not let anger control you, she said softly. God will handle what men cannot. But he could not calm down. No, Mother, he said with fire in his voice. I will make him face the truth. I will not let him hurt us again. She held his hand tightly. Gerald, listen to me. Revenge gives no peace. I have already lived through that pain. I do not want you to carry it too. He turned away, tears in his eyes. He must pay for what he did. She whispered, Let God decide. For a long moment neither spoke. The only sound in the room was the quiet beating of two broken hearts. Finally, Gerald sank to his knees before her. Mother, forgive me, he said. Forgive me for not seeing your pain sooner. She touched his hair gently. There is nothing to forgive. You are my blessing. He looked up at her, his eyes full of tears. What will we do now? She answered softly. We will live with truth. It may hurt us, but it will free us too. Outside, the night was silent. Inside, a mother and son sat together, joined by love and sorrow. The secret that had hidden between them was gone, and though their hearts were heavy, they finally breathed the same air of truth. Mrs. Arbuthnot closed her eyes and whispered, Thank you, Lord, for giving me the courage to speak. Chapter 7. The Decision. The next morning was quiet in the small house. Gerald had not slept all night. His eyes were tired, and his heart was burning with anger. He sat by the window, staring at nothing. His mother stood near the table, watching him silently. She wanted to speak, but waited for him to start. At last, Gerald said in a low voice, Mother, I cannot stay silent. That man must answer for what he did. Mrs. Arbuthnot closed her eyes. My son, she said gently, anger is a fire that burns the hand that holds it. Do not let it destroy you. But he shook his head. He destroyed your peace. He made you live in shame. I cannot forgive him. Later that day, Lord Illingworth came again. He walked in confidently, not knowing that the truth was now out. Good morning, Mrs. Arbuthnot. Gerald, he said with a smile. Gerald looked at him coldly. Do not call me by my name, he said firmly. You lost the right long ago. Lord Illingworth raised his eyebrows. So your mother has told you? Gerald stood up. Yes, she told me everything. You are my father, but not in heart, only in blood. The man smiled slightly. You speak like your mother. Too proud, too emotional, Mrs. Arbuthnot said quietly. Pride is better than shame, and emotion is better than cruelty. Lord Illingworth tried to keep his calm. I came to make things right. I am ready to marry you now, Mrs. Arbuthnot. That will silence the world and clear the past. She looked at him with deep sadness. You think marriage is a medicine for guilt? You think a ceremony can clean your soul? You are wrong. He frowned. You are being foolish. I am giving you respect. She replied firmly. Respect cannot be given by the one who once took it away. Gerald's anger grew stronger. You left her to suffer while you lived in comfort, he said. You never cared what became of us. Lord Illingworth laughed coldly. I have lived my life as I wished. Everyone makes choices. Gerald stepped closer, his voice shaking. Then faced you. He choice you made. His hands trembled, and for a moment he almost struck his father. Mrs. Arbuthnot caught his arm. No, my son, she said softly. Do not touch him. Leave his punishment to God. Lord Illingworth tried to hide his discomfort. I came here with peace, not war, he said. You cannot change the past. Mrs. Arbuthnot answered. No, but I can protect the future, and that means keeping you away from my son. Gerald said coldly, I want nothing from you. Not your name, not your money, not your help. You are nothing to me. Lord Illingworth looked at him for a moment, then turned to leave. You will regret this one day, he said. Mrs. Arbuthnot replied, No, he will thank me one day. When the door closed behind him, silence filled the room. Gerald fell to his knees crying. Mother, I almost became like him, he said in a broken voice. She knelt beside him and placed her hand on his head. No, my son, you are different. You have a heart that knows right from wrong. That is your strength. He looked up at her with tears. What will we do now? She smiled softly through her sadness. We will begin again. We have little, but we have truth, and truth is enough. Later that night, Hester came to visit. When she saw Gerald's face, she understood that he knew everything. She sat beside him quietly. Now you know, she said gently. Yes, he answered. And it hurts. She held his hand. Pain is not always the enemy. Sometimes it teaches us who we really are. He looked at her with gratitude. You and my mother are the only two who see life clearly. Hester smiled. Then hold on to that clarity. Leave the past behind. Mrs. Arbuthnot watched them together and felt a calm she had not felt in years. The truth had broken her, but it had also set her free. She looked toward the door where Lord Illingworth had gone and whispered, "That chapter of my life is closed forever." Then she turned to her son and said softly, "Tomorrow, we will decide our new path." Chapter 8. A New Beginning. The next morning brought a quiet peace into the house. The air felt lighter, as if the pain of many years had finally been released. Mrs. Arbuthnot sat by the window, watching the light touch the walls. Gerald came and stood beside her. He looked tired but calm. "Mother," he said softly, "I thought all night about what you said. You were right. Anger cannot heal what is broken. I want to start again. I want to live honestly, with peace in my heart." She smiled gently. "That is all I ever wanted for you, my son. Truth may hurt, but it never destroys. Lies destroy everything." Soon after, Hester came to see them. Her eyes were bright but serious. "I came to say goodbye," she said softly. "I am returning to America. But before I go, I want to take both of you with me. You can start a new life there, away from pain and gossip." Mrs. Arbuthnot looked at her with surprise. "You would do that for us?" she asked. Hester nodded. "You have suffered enough. My country welcomes those who want peace." Gerald turned to his mother. "What do you say?" he asked. Mrs. Arbuthnot looked at both of them and felt a deep calm inside her. "Perhaps this is God's answer," she said. "A chance to begin again." That evening, they packed their few things. Mrs. Arbuthnot folded her old letters and placed them in the fire. The paper turned to ash, and she whispered, "Let the past burn with it." Gerald came close and said, "I will never forget what you went through, Mother. You taught me that strength is not loud. It is quiet and patient." She smiled and touched his face. "And you taught me forgiveness, my son." When they reached the port the next morning, the sun was rising slowly. The air was cool, and the sky was painted with soft colors. As they walked toward the ship, Mrs. Arbuthnot looked back at the city one last time. "Goodbye," she whispered. "You gave me sorrow, but you also gave me wisdom." Gerald held her hand and said, "This time, our story will be different." "Oh, and the ship." Hester looked at them with affection. "You are brave," she said. "Not everyone has the courage to begin again." Mrs. Arbuthnot smiled. "We are not running from the past. We are walking toward the future." Gerald looked at the endless water and said quietly, "For years, I thought success was money or fame, but now I know it is peace." Hester nodded. Peace of heart is the only success that lasts. As the ship began to move, Mrs. Arbuthnot felt her heart grow lighter. The sound of the waves was soft, and for the first time in years, she felt no fear. She whispered a prayer. "Thank you, Lord, for giving me a second chance, for giving my son a clean path." Gerald stood beside her and said, "Mother, I want to work honestly in this new land. I want to make you proud, not through fame, but through kindness." She looked at him with eyes full of love. "You already have, my son." The three of them stood together, watching the shore fade behind them. The wind carried away the pain of the past, and filled their hearts with hope. Mrs. Arbuthnot held her son's hand and whispered, "This is the life I prayed for, a life where truth lives without fear." As the sun rose higher, she smiled for the first time in many years. The pain of yesterday had turned into strength. The story of sorrow had become a story of grace. And in her heart, she knew that every ending, no matter how sad, could become the beginning of something pure, moral. True respect comes not from wealth or society, but from honesty, forgiveness, and faith.